Stop the cap.
So, I gotta take a little dig at the Arab Egyptians. I know it's a low blow, but these motherfuckers talk so much goddamn shit online and arrogantly. Frankly, I don't give a fuck. And that is the fact that they run around the internet acting like it is the most ridiculous thing in the world that ancient Egypt was a black African civilization, despite all the depictions of ancient Egyptians that we see with no shirt on, which I pointed out in my original video about ancient Egypt and who the ancient Egyptians were. You don't see these people from the Levant, or let's call them what they are, these Greco-Arab individuals that are, the predominant group in Cairo, right? You don't see them on the depicted in the ancient Egyptian portraits, where walking around, tilling the fields, building the structures, the monuments, doing the work. Whenever you see those murals, they're always of black African Egyptians. Again, people who look like the Beja people, the people of Aswan, the people of Nubia, what's the other group that exists there? Right, I said the Beja people, the people of Aswan, and there's another group that I'm missing. But anyway, these black African Egyptians that the modern day Egyptians, and they use that term, modern day Egyptians, love to claim, are not the original Egyptians, despite all the depictions, all the images that we see. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just the amount of suddenly logic and reason doesn't work that the modern Egyptians do is just crazy. But anyway, currently what's going on is Hajj, and Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. There's 5 pillars. You have the Shahaba, or Shahada, I said that wrong, Shahada, and then basically that is making the statement that, there is no, other God other than Allah, and that Muhammad was the messenger. Then you have Salah, which is they have to pray 5 times a day. Then you have the Zakah, which is basically you have to give a portion of your earnings to the community. And then you have Sawam, which is what you see during Ramadan, which is fasting, and then during the holy month. And then you have Hajj, and Hajj is where they go to Mecca and basically engage in a bunch of Muslim rituals, walking around the circle of the Kaaba, stoning the devil, right? There's all these things that they got to do while on Hajj, right? But the news just came out that 1,000 pilgrims going on Hajj, and I got my own issues with Hajj, and how the Saudis, just using it as a way to get money when they don't really need to, and they got all the oil money, and somehow they haven't built out air conditioning. And then there's a whole thing about how the poor people, they have one set of experience when they go on Hajj versus people who are wealthy, who get to stay in 5-star hotels and whatnot, right? It's kind of very anti-Muslim when you really look at how things play out on the ground. But in any event, I'm saying they had 1,000. I think it was, what did I say on that page? I think it was about 500. Was it 500, or I forget what the number was. There's anywhere from 300 to 500 Egyptians that have died. And there's a bunch of people missing who are on Hajj. And that's just Egypt. The total number is somewhere around 1,000. And they're talking about that it's, there's Jordanians that have died. There's Iranians that have died. Um, who else has died? Just other different pilgrims. I think they had a few people from Bangladesh. And as one woman said in the interview, it's not just the old people, right? Because you know, old people shouldn't be in the heat like that because, they're older, their bodies are breaking down, they can't regulate heat as much, right? But all these people that are dying, I haven't heard, 200 Africans have died due to, heat stroke. You don't see that. You know why? Because black people are African and they were built for the heat. We're the only people that essentially were built for the heat. And maybe you could throw in some South Indians, some dark-skinned South Indians, some Dravidians and whatnot, because they still retained, their melanin, right? But it's almost comical to me to have you go online and these Arab Egyptians make these racist ass videos talking about how they're the original Egyptians and whatnot, right? And somebody asked me the question because I said that there were some Near Eastern pharaohs. There were Near Eastern pharaohs. They were the Hyksos, and Amos or Moses, however you say it, Amos the first, which is the first pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, booted them out. They were expelled from Egypt. They were kicked out from Egypt. You see? And the other thing is like when you have these other, just to show like the highlight, the sophistication of Egypt, notice how all these people that come in, they always adopt the culture of the Egyptians, not the other way around. Typically, you don't see that. Typically, when the quote unquote superior group comes in, right, they force the subordinate group to adopt all of their ways and religions and language and culture. But in Egypt, you see the opposite. You see people come into Egypt and then they want to become Egypt. They want to adopt the culture. Like I said before, when people want to argue, again, the Nile flows from south to north, right? Most of the monuments, with the exception of the pyramids, are in the south of the country. They're not in the north of the country, right? The capital is in the south of the country, Luxor and Thebes. And then not the capital of today's capital. Today's capital is Cairo. But in ancient times, the capital was in Luxor and Thebes, which is in the southern part of the country. Then you have all the aspects of the flora and the fauna, when it comes to the ancient Egyptian language. The hieroglyph for face is clearly that of a black African. The gods of ancient Egypt were gods that were based off of what are now today sub-Saharan animals, sub-Saharan African animals. The god Amet has the the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the I guess the hind part or the bottom half of a hippopotamus. So again, what Near Eastern, because you get the Arabs, they come through, oh, it's a Near Eastern civilization. Okay, so why would a Near Eastern civilization, right, create a language that uses the flora and the fauna of a continent that they're not from? Because they're from Asia, they're not from Africa. Why would a Near Eastern group of people come up with gods that are based on African animals that today reside in sub-Saharan Africa? Because again, you go back 12,000 years ago, the Sahara was wet and it was more like a Sahel. And when the climate changed and foreign invasion came in, the animals moved south and the people moved with them. And then the idea that the Sahara has been some sort of impassable domain, right? When there's trading routes across the Sahara, I don't know even know, where they get these ideas from. But somehow they're like, ooh, sub-Saharan Africa, because there's an invisible line that prevents sub-Saharan Africans from crossing the desert to get to Egypt. Right? This is what they say. And that the North Africans, right, which Egyptians claim themselves to be a part of, just moseyed on over from the Levant, created Egypt a civilization, and then migrated down, or the culture and the civilization migrated down as opposed to migrating up when the Nile River doesn't even flow from the Mediterranean, into, the interior of Africa, where the origins are in the mountains, where Uganda and the border of the Congo is. Right? And again, where were the first humans? Where did the first human beings originate from? Just west of the Horn of Africa. Right around, Lake Victoria, right in that region where the Nile originates. So the arguments that they make, it doesn't line up, even if you just follow any sort of logical path or logical conclusion. But what I find funny, which isn't really funny, but what I find funny is all this, we're the original Egyptians, we're the ancient Egyptians, us Arabs, us Near Easterners, we're the original Egyptians, and yet they're over there falling out like flies because it's too damn hot. Because they were not built for the climate. Not in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, where they went, to go on Hajj. They're falling out like flies. Right? Meanwhile, the black Africans, when have you ever heard of black people in mass dying because it was too hot? Where have you heard this? Oh, it was too hot, and they died. Africans are from Africa. That is their natural born climate. They're built for the climate. Here, I'll go. Let me go and further break down or give supporting evidence of what I'm talking about. Africans have developed various physiological and genetic adaptations that help them cope better with the heat and the sun of Africa. Here are some key adaptations. Skin pigmentation. High melanin levels in the skin provide natural protection against UV light, or UV radiation from the sun. Melanin acts as a natural sunscreen, reducing the risk of skin cancer and other UV-related damage. Number 2, sweat gland density. Africans tend to have a higher density of sweat glands, which enhances their ability to sweat and regulate body temperature. Sweating is a primary cooling mechanism, especially in hot climates, right? Notice how black Africans tend not to have any bodily hair, right? Europeans running around calling black people monkeys, and they're the ones that got hair on their arms and hair on their chest and hair on their back, right? Same thing with the Near Easterners, right? Because they're, of European stock, or what you would call, not European stock, Caucasian stock. You see? But, whenever you look at a black person, you ever see a black man, playing basketball or just in the sun, and it looks like he's covered in baby oil and his skin is just glistening? Yeah, because we have a higher density of sweat glands that allows us to cool off. We don't have any need to have hair on our chest and hair on our back and hair on our arms. We don't have any need for that because as black Africans, we were built for the climate of Africa. Number 3, body shape and size. And this goes right into the Nilotic builds of the Egyptian statues. Many Africans have a body shape characterized by longer limbs and higher surface area to volume ratio, which aids in heat dissipation. This body type is advantageous in hot climates as it allows. All right, now I'm back getting phone calls and whatnot. Body shape. Where was I at? Body shape and size. Many Africans have a body shape characterized by longer limbs and a higher surface area to volume ratio, which aids in heat dissipation. This body type is advantageous in hot climates as it allows for more effective cooling through radiation and convection. Again, when you look at the ancient Egyptian statues, right, and you see how they're tall and slender and they have longer arms. You see this in the NBA. Longer arms, longer limbs. These are not the bodies of Europeans or people from the Levant. Because when you look at an African is standing there, you ever see the black people? They standing there and they look like they can scratch their mid-thigh. It's like they standing up and they can scratch their knees at the same time. You see this in the Egyptian statues. The hands go down about midway down the femur. The Europeans don't have that type of build. Near Easterners don't have that type of build. Many of them have a stockier build. I mean, hell, the whole reason why many of them have the alkaline nose is so that it can warm the air as it goes up their nose, as opposed to in Africa where you don't necessarily need to have a nose. You're not warming any air. Continuing, genetic factors. Some genetic factors contribute to the efficiency of thermoregulation. For example, certain gene variants found more commonly in African populations are associated with better heat tolerance and effective sweat response. And then number 5, adaptation to UV exposure. In addition to skin pigmentation, certain genetic adaptations help protect against the effects of UV exposure. These include DNA repair mechanisms that are more efficient in repairing UV-induced damage. Hence why it's very rare for you to see a black person with skin cancer. Okay? Our DNA, we got Wolverine DNA when it comes to healing as it pertains to the sun trying to damage us. We heal against the sun. Many of these other groups, the sun is literally trying to kill you. And you all have the audacity to run around and say, we was kings, we was pharaohs, we was the original Egyptians. No, the fuck you are not. You're not built for this shit. And the fact that you over there at Hajj and you walking around and you passing out and you dropping like flies all over the place, you know what I mean? That should further reinforce what the fuck we've been saying. But y'all want to come on with your little jokey jokes and you want to hee ha ha. Oh, we was kings and y'all black Africans, y'all ain't the real Egyptians. Why you coming over here trying to steal somebody else's culture? Right? Y'all talking all this bullshit. But yet, of the two of us, only one of us is over there dropping like flies because it's too hot. Only one of us. Y'all be running around. Y'all got the hijab. Y'all got the pajamas. Y'all got the niqab. Y'all got all that type shit. Y'all covering up. Yes, I know it's for women and prevent them from being seen and everything else. But again, whenever were you walking around with no damn shirt on? Even in the images of the campaigns that Ramses II had in the Levant, because he went all the way to freaking Syria, okay? Even the campaigns that he had in the Levant, when you see the Egyptians and them capturing the Near Easterners are always clothed and they always got beards, and the ancient Egyptians are walking around with their shirt off. What allows you to walk around with your shirt off and for not having a shirt being a normal thing? Because you are melanated. You have melanin. You have dark skin. Just like, again, the images that I showed of Amenhotep, the third, his wife, Queen T, right? Akhenaten's daughters, King Tut, and the image of him on his throne chair. Why are you all fighting the obvious? Why are you running around claiming to be something that you're not? You all are invaders. You came in the 7th century. It is not your history. It is not your legacy. Ancient Egypt belongs to the black race. Not saying you weren't there. Not saying you didn't participate. Not saying you didn't contribute. But to sit there and try to take ancient Egypt out of Africa and give it to the Middle East, again, there's all the evidence in the world that simply doesn't support that. Do I have to pull up the images of the headrest, right, that Africans use but Middle Easterners don't use? Do I have to pull up the images of the collars that Africans use and Middle Easterns don't use, right? I've already shown that the shirtless Africans. I've already shown the hairstyles and how the East Africans, the Nilotic black people, styled their hair, that they continue to style that way to this day. Okay, even in West Africa, they style their hair in the same manner. Obviously, there were connections and relationships to West Africa as hell. The Yoruba tribe claims that they hail from Egypt because, again, climate change, and when the Arab invaders and other groups came, they left. Some people stayed, other people left, other people, got and linked up with the Arab invaders and the Coptic people who come from I think they come from the Greeks. I think it's either the Greeks or the Romans. They come from one of them, because that's where you get the whole Coptic language and all that, because the black Africans in the South, south of Thebes, they were still writing in hieratic, which is just a script version of hieroglyphs. Demonic or demonic, or however you say it, that's a later period script. That's what happens when you have other groups come in and they contribute. That's why if you look at Demonic and you look at Arabic, they're both written from right to left, and they both pretty much, if you didn't know if you didn't know like the actual language of Arabic and you saw Demonic, you would think it was Arabic. These are the influences of other groups of people who came in later. But the base culture of ancient Egypt is black African. And the modern day Egypt, they cannot handle that. Their heads explode, right? And there's a lot at play. There's the politics at play. There's the racism, white supremacy at play. There's what's the other aspects of it at play? There's other aspects of it at play, such as the fact that, obviously ancient Egypt tourism is it's a $1 billion industry, multiple billions of dollars. People travel all over the world to go and see the greatness of ancient Egypt. And to sit there and be like, yeah, well, this really isn't ours. It is really the black Africans. But let us sit here and pretend like we know what the fuck we're talking about and tell you about this great civilization because we're the actual Egyptians. But we don't really, you go in a tomb and you find a damn headrest and you're going to sit there. You don't use a headrest, right? Because Europeans and Near Easterners, they didn't use headrests. They used straw. Black people with their elaborate hairstyles, right? They didn't want to mess up their hairstyles by rolling around on a pillow, fucking their hair up. So what did they use? They used headrest, which is clearly an indication that they're African. And not only that, to even further contribute to the damn argument, and I can't even say the word. What is it called? Hold on. What is it? Dolecephalic. How do you say that? Hold on. Cephalic. Why is this misspelling this? I hate these Latin-derived freaking words. Nope, that's not the word that I'm looking for. That's because you put a stupid extra letter in there when you shouldn't. Dolichocephalic. Having a relatively longer skull, typically with the breadth less than 80 or 75% of the length. So basically, from front to back, your head is longer than it is tall, and that's what you see with black African skulls. All you gotta do is look at King Tut's skull. Look, and you could just type in European skull, Asian skull, African skull, and Africans have the longest skulls from front to back, which clearly indicates African origin, not Near Eastern origin, African origin. But again, despite that evidence, the Arab Egyptians still want to argue with you. I mean, there's so many points, there's so many areas that can be argued on this front, and yet they will still sit there with the white supremacists high-fiving each other, hee-heeing and ha-haing, acting like, oh, could you believe these black people, they think that they was pharaohs, right? And they go and they make these racist cartoons and all this other bullshit, and you just sitting there, and these motherfuckers are over there, they passing out because of the heat. Fuck out of here. Anyway, that's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.